What happens when one of Hollywood's most intense actors sits down with late-night television's sharpest wit, and things go completely sideways? Tonight, we're diving into the moment that had everyone talking when Mark Wahlberg and Stephen Colbert's interview spiraled into chaos. So quickly that cameras kept rolling as the Transformers star walked right off the set. This was not your typical celebrity promotion gone wrong. This was a full-blown confrontation that neither host nor guest saw coming. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below about the most awkward interview you have ever seen, because what you are about to witness might just top your list. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert had been running smoothly that evening. Colbert, known for his sharp wit and calm control of the room, was settling into what everyone assumed would be a routine interview. Mark Wahlberg was there to promote his latest action thriller. The producers expected stories about stunts, Boston roots, maybe a playful jab at his Marky Mark days. Instead, they got something no one in the control room was prepared for. Wahlberg walked out with his usual confidence, greeted the crowd, and took his seat. The energy felt normal at first. Colbert opened with a joke about Wahlberg's signature intensity on screen, and Wahlberg laughed it off easily. But then the tone shifted. Colbert leaned forward and asked whether Wahlberg ever worried about the message his tough guy roles sent to younger audiences. It sounded polite, but there was an edge to it. Wahlberg's expression tightened. He asked what kind of message Colbert thought he was sending. Colbert pressed on, pointing out how often Wahlberg's characters relied on violence and intimidation. The audience went quiet. Wahlberg leaned back, clearly reassessing the conversation. He talked about growing up in Dorchester, about real struggles, about the difference between movies and real life. Colbert did not back off. He suggested that Wahlberg had turned those experiences into a profitable brand, and questioned whether that was fair to the community he came from. From that moment on, the interview stopped being an interview. It became a standoff. Wahlberg's voice grew sharper, his accent stronger. He accused Colbert of speaking from a place of comfort and privilege. Colbert acknowledged his own advantages, but argued that they allowed him to see the issue clearly. The tension was visible everywhere. The audience, the crew, even Colbert himself seemed aware that they were crossing into dangerous territory. As Wahlberg spoke about survival and fighting his way out of circumstances most people never face, Colbert framed it as exploitation rather than inspiration. And sitting there watching it unfold, you could feel that something was about to snap. At that point, I remember wondering if I should even continue telling this story, or move on to the next chapter. The second part of the exchange only deepened the divide. Wahlberg accused Colbert of lecturing him about violence, without understanding what violence actually looks like. Colbert countered by saying that lived experience does not automatically make someone the right messenger. The words grew heavier. The studio grew quieter. Wahlberg spoke about fear, about friends lost to crime and drugs, about growing up feeling unsafe. He accused Colbert of using that kind of pain as material for comedy. For the first time, Colbert looked genuinely shaken. He insisted he was questioning responsibility, not mocking trauma. That is when the conversation turned personal. Wahlberg challenged Colbert directly. When was the last time you were in Dorchester? When was the last time you spoke to kids living this reality? Colbert tried to steer the discussion back to media responsibility, but Wahlberg cut him off. He talked about action versus talk, about doing something tangible instead of sitting behind a desk. Colbert responded bluntly, suggesting Wahlberg's philanthropy came only after fame, and maybe for the tax benefits. The air left the room. Wahlberg went quiet in a way that felt more dangerous than his shouting. He spoke about letters from kids who felt inspired by his movies, about scholarships he funded without publicity. Colbert acknowledged that, but insisted that for every inspired kid, many more might take the wrong lesson. The back and forth felt endless, and neither man seemed willing to give an inch. Wahlberg stepped closer to the desk. Colbert stood his ground. Producers were visibly panicking off camera, but no one interrupted. It was raw, uncomfortable, and very real. At some point, it stopped being about movies, masculinity, or responsibility. It became about respect. Wahlberg accused Colbert of cynicism disguised as intelligence. Colbert accused Wahlberg of hiding profit behind purpose. When Wahlberg finally stepped back, nodded slowly, and said he knew when someone did not deserve his time, it felt like the end was coming. And as I watched that moment in my head, I had to ask myself if it even made sense to keep going or stop the story here. Wahlberg turned to the audience and explained why he had come on the show. He said he wanted to talk about a film centered on people who fight for what matters. Instead, he felt ambushed. Colbert tried to interrupt, but Wahlberg shut it down with a raised hand. He called the exchange an interrogation, not a conversation. Then he grabbed his jacket. The studio was silent except for the faint hum of the cameras. When Colbert suggested they could continue like adults, Wahlberg delivered the line that changed everything. Adults do not invite someone on a show just to tear them down for entertainment. He called it bullying. As he walked off, Colbert called after him, asking if walking away was his solution to conflict. Wahlberg stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back. Walking away, he said, was his solution to wasting time with people who confuse cruelty for comedy. Then he was gone. The audience did not know what to do. Applaud, boo, or sit frozen. Colbert stood alone behind his desk, trying to regain control, finally admitting that this was not how he expected the evening to go. The interview that was supposed to promote a movie had turned into something deeply uncomfortable. It raised questions with no easy answers about art, responsibility, and who gets to tell whose story. And long after the cameras stopped rolling, people were still arguing about who crossed the line first. Even now, thinking about it, I find myself asking whether I should keep unpacking this moment or stop here and let it speak for itself.